after I installed and played with eToys a little bit, picked up the subtle hints that, oh, you're using eToys as you explain.
It is a Dynabook. It's the complete opposite of PowerPoint.
Right.
And yeah, I think for speaking, that the computer, but this is again, it's speaking is basically a theatrical art, and
That's still part of language arts.
yeah, it is, and yeah, I had to learn how to do it. And I actually, it was again Papert. Papert was an incredible speaker, and writer, and I was neither. And so I asked him about it, and he explained to me that he had spent, once he realized he had to explain things to teachers, he took 2 years out and learned to talk and write on those terms. And I thought, wow. So I'll just do that too. It was, because he was used to talking more technically and
Sure.
stuff, and so was I, and so and I wasn't as much of a natural at it as Papert, but basically the theater is essentially all about the audience, and you have to make that shift in order to, because that's the only reason for being there.
Mm-hmm.
So and then once you make that shift, there's a zillion things that you can learn how to do, and the eToys is more than just for learning math, and because of what it is, it's a dynamic medium.
For the teachers watching this, that even the language arts teachers could probably take
Yeah.
this to a far extent. Now, it's not necessarily going to teach them how to do sentence construction, but then again, as I say that, I had a real problem in school, high school, middle school, with English. I became an emergency credentialed teacher and taught in the classroom, and I learned sentence diagramming from my wife, which opened my eyes, and so my students were taught, because it gave me a structure to hang
Yeah,
sentences
yeah.
on, and all of a sudden, I get it. And so my excitement in that, I taught my students that diagram till it fell out of favor and we weren't allowed to teach it anymore. But I could see this as another means of, adding structure, even if it's to the point of being able to experiment and manipulate in an environment
Yeah, it has
that's
some of
built
the-
for math and science maybe, but could work.
There's a guy by the name of Larry Gonick who does books about serious subjects in cartoon form, and he's fun to watch give a talk,
Okay.
because he will have a bunch of easels with blank sheets of paper on them, and as he talks about whatever the subject is, he will draw, because he can just draw. He's a fluent
Sure.
drawer, and he cheats a little bit. He has
Oh,
little pencil things that you can't see on there to
Part
remind him what
magician,
he's going to.
okay.
Yeah, well, that's what public speaking is.
Yes.
It's like being a magician, and so I think that I've seen. By the way, I've seen some really good PowerPoint presentations. John Maeda of MIT is an artist, and of course he knows right away that you should never show text in
Well,
PowerPoint.
to say, probably does
So
a lot.
he realizes that if you think of it as, if you're stuck with PowerPoint, you can still make effective use of it if you use it as a complementary thing, if you use it as an added dimension.
Illustration.
But if you try and tie it into what you're saying in any direct way, you're killing off what you're saying. Whereas it's really like a theatrical background to stuff. I get away with a lot more with eToys because I can manipulate it directly. And so it actually becomes a direct extension of what I'm trying to say, and most of the people in my group do. So they've gotten away from sort of just presenting the facts
Mm-hmm.
and into presenting the process that's actually going on. And actually, I think it helps. I've heard from a lot of teachers who've gotten interested in eToys.
Just about to ask
They
this.
just like. Well, the fact that I'm willing to do it in public,
Mm-hmm.
and the system has never crashed on me in public, and 1 minute I have nothing, and the next minute I have something, and it wasn't pre-canned, I'm just doing it.
Sure.
All of those things add to people's confidence that, hey, this doesn't look that hard, doesn't look like learning Java or something.
No, I mean, I'm sure Scott may cut this in, but your presentation on creating a car and then drawing a steering wheel to control the car right in front of the audience
Yeah.
should speak volumes into the ease and maybe the low threshold in some respects to actually getting to
Yeah.
a project.
So all those, I mean, those ideas. So the interesting question is, when you're doing a tool like that, can you have no ceiling as well as low threshold? So this is an idea that Papert also came out with. He said you should have low threshold, but unlimited ceiling. And the low threshold is hard to do, but if you don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater, so you can do something that is low threshold but is uninteresting.
Sure.
So you want to have something that is moderately interesting right away, that gives you something that's in your own heart. We say so that every child can see their face in it right away. So it's a mirror for them.
Sure.
This is for them. But it's much, much harder to make the thing gracefully get comprehensive to go. So this next, this eToys was actually done originally when we were at Disney. It was aimed for a very restrictive set of ideas, and then we wound up using it for more than it was intended to be used for, just because of the way life works out. And next year we're going to start working on one that we think will have a lot more graceful, that'll be able to start earlier, because children is early. In fact, an 8-year-old girl and her 4-year-old sister just won a programming contest in Singapore using eToys.
I just read about that. Yes.
Did you? Yeah. And one of the judges said, fortunately, the ages of the kids weren't on the thing, so the judges thought these were junior high school students doing this thing, and and it wasn't restricted to eToys, but the eToys Haddle was sort of a nice thing, and the two little girls were friends.
Wow.
As sisters, and the 4-year-old contributed a lot of stuff, and they just made this thing. So kids a lot earlier than we had intended have been using it, and kids a lot older have been using it.
So you use the same program for secondary?
They do, and but there's several concepts that I would for high school I would do one whole part of it differently.
Okay.
And so one of the things we've been thinking about over the last few years is how you would make something that would be a little bit different, just a little bit different for the age kids we work with now. But that little bit of difference would allow it to be much more graceful about getting super powerful. Because by the time a kid gets to be about 14, so 14 to 18, they can do pretty much anything that they put their mind to.